What's going on, people? Welcome back. It's been 2 weeks. Let me check because the one time that I was live, my audio was not working. So let's make sure we're working. Okay, that's working. Let's make sure my sound's working. One second. Oh, oh, okay, that's working. Cool. Well, there we go. All right. So, welcome back to these lives. We're going to have a nice Wednesday night. We're going to be talking about a historical low for housing units sold and what that can mean for you guys. Also, as always, I'm here for Q&A if you have any questions. If you guys saw my reel recently, I was talking about on the Artie Real Estate podcast, which you subscribe to. I was talking about it's important to consult with real estate agent, your loan officer when you're doing insurance, the insurance person, all that kind of stuff. And so if you guys have questions, but you don't have a resource, I am making myself available. So please ask your questions. We can kind of chop it up. I'm going to drop the link for the to join in the conversation. You can comment, but you also can come and voice chat or even be on camera if you like. Some people are shy, they might not want to do that. I'm copying this. Let's drop it in here. Join the conversation. Bam. Let's put that in there. Can I pin this? How can I pin my chat? I don't know. No, it doesn't let me. That's all right. Look at that. The subtitles are working. What's going on? Don't be a ninja watcher. Don't be creepy. Say hello. Talk to me nice.
Talk to Me Nice podcast.
Oh, I look frozen. Am I frozen? I hope not. No, I'm not frozen. Okay. What's going on, Victoria? What's going on? How are you on this lovely evening that we have where it's really cold? And I think it's actually someone reached out to me today that they were thinking about selling their house because the market, and we had an interesting conversation about that because they're trying. See, guys, when you're selling your, if it's a personal residence, oh well, this one happened to be a rental property, so I get it. But timing the market in real estate is kind of risky. But I actually do have some advice for people as far as what they should be doing to time the market. Um, on the buy side more than the sell side. Obviously, it kind of works inversely, though. What's going on? See, I can bring up comments and we're going to have a cool chat. Um, I'm going to be reacting to a video. Haven't pre-watched it, so you're going to get my authentic reaction to Breaking Points, which is my favorite news source. And we're just having some chill vibes tonight. We're going to have a good time. So, um, if you're new here, my name is Ryan Fagan. I am broker owner of Artie Real Estate, a real estate brokerage here in South Jersey. We just launched in the summertime, and we help buyers and sellers. I also have a property management company, so we do property management here in Central/South Jersey. And if you have a big portfolio, we could probably do North Jersey as well. Also have 10 rental units in my own portfolio. We've done about 6 flips with me and a business partner. I have property in Texas. And so that's kind of my real estate background, as well as I worked in property preservation on the Fannie Mae contract for the Northeast region. Basically, we maintain bank-owned properties after 2008. I just worked for the company as a broker services person, as a liaison between the contractors and the real estate agent and the asset manager trying to sell the property. And that was a really interesting job, which gave me a lot of experience with bank-owned properties and how the banks look at stuff, and also how agents handle bank-owned stuff. Obviously, we haven't seen a lot of foreclosures, so the market's a lot different for that. Interestingly enough, as far as the topic, we haven't seen all these foreclosures that everyone's talking about. She said, sheesh. Is that all? Yeah, for now. If you guys didn't know, I booked my trip to Kenya where I will be vacationing in Nairobi, and I think I'll stop in Mombasa as well, and maybe some other places. Um, Part of that trip is going to have to do with talking to real estate agents out there. I'm trying to make some contacts out there. I've talked to a couple people looking at land, looking at condos, maybe some other businesses. Coffee business out there is pretty big, farmland, stuff like that. I don't know anything, but this first venture out there is going to be learning and trying to make contacts. And I'm going to share, I'm going to be making content. Don't have a schedule or anything as far as the content that I'm going to be doing, but if you're interested to that kind of stuff, I definitely think it's going to be worth your time to check out. I'm going to probably interview some real estate people, try to find an attorney to talk to, and wherever else I can find. I'll be there for the whole month of February. So yeah, will have a plenty of time to really get involved and see what's going on. To continue with my background for all the new people, I also worked as a real estate analyst at a commercial real estate firm, a commercial appraisal firm, and we worked on really cool projects. If you're a young person interested in learning or getting into the real estate industry, I really recommend getting into being like an appraisal apprentice, not really for residential, but for like a bigger corporation or something, because the stuff that you work on is so interesting. I worked on an eminent domain case in Philadelphia where the transportation department or SEPTA was doing an eminent domain, which basically they can take your property and then they have to pay you the fair market value of it. So the city hired the firm to come up with the value of, it was a travel agency in far west Philadelphia off of City Line Avenue. And the way that business works is quite interesting. You know, before 2008 on the residential side, you know, um, the influence on appraisers to appraise the property for what whoever hires them wants it to appraise for is real. That loophole hasn't been closed in commercial, so that's an interesting business. And just another really cool project that I worked on as an analyst was actually two. I worked on, Philly has been trying to make walking paths all along the river, and they're looking at doing eminent domain where they take, 10 feet of your waterfront property. There's factories and now Sugar House or whatever that new casino is called now. All those things are over there. And we had to try to come up with a valuation for the 10 feet long waterfront to build a path or a walkway. And that was really interesting how you would do the analysis on what's 10 feet across your property worth to build a path. If so, because when you do eminent domain, the government has to pay you the fair market value of what they're taking. But how do you value a very small amount of square footage, but considering the fact that people are going to be walking on it, could change the characteristics of your property. It's pretty interesting. Those are interesting cases. So I really think that if you're curious about real estate, those cases are super interesting. I also worked on one where um, a suburb, some county in Pennsylvania was forcing this warehouse complex to hook up to the sewer system because they were on septic systems at the time. And we had to figure out what the damage or the cost, or if there was even a benefit to the warehouse complex to being hooked into the sewer system. And it's interesting because not a lot of people work in the warehouse, so the amount of usage for the septic and all kinds of calculations that you would have to do. Um, and so I really found that job quite interesting, how you learn all kinds of different issues and you government stuff and just how real estate really works as far, especially with the government, but also how you would value certain properties. Another case that I actually worked on, since I'm talking about it, is um, the city of Philadelphia was giving tax abatements to new construction, and then also the property assessments where you would get your property taxes from. Basically, they would tell, if your house was worth $200,000, you would pay a certain tax rate. If your house was worth $300,000, you'd pay a certain tax rate. But so the tax rate's the same across the city, but what they would value the properties was not consistent against the market value. And there was like questions on if they were kind of doing that on purpose to make the taxes in one area, which was higher end, lower versus another area. Or it could have been because the areas are changing rapidly and the prices are changing. So that was another really interesting project that I was a part of working as an analyst for. So, yeah, this is pretty cool stuff to work on, and just kind of giving you guys a little bit of my background. And then also, I worked as a mortgage loan officer where I did $17 million in 1 year. It was a call center, so they give you your lead. So it's, different versus if you worked with an independent mortgage person, but still. And yeah, so that's my background. If anybody's new here, remember this is an interactive show. So if you have questions, let me know. I'm just trying to stay hydrated with my Eagles cup of water here. And let's get into it. We're going to be talking about this drop in home sales because if you guys didn't know, it's really a weird market. I've been saying that since 2020, but now it's like even stranger because when we say home sales are dropping, that means the total amount of homes being sold is decreasing. Interestingly enough, usually if there's less buyers in the market, the price would go up. I'm sorry. When there's less inventory, the price would go up. If there's more, oh my goodness, my brain today, and I'm getting a phone call. I can't do it. It is, and I'm struggling. What's going on? We talked about this. What's the big struggle? What's your biggest struggle? Because I think we talked about your budget and it wasn't that bad. But back to what I was saying though, the inventory is low and there's not a lot of buyers. So supply and demand went down, which makes the price stay the same, even though there's very little activity in the market. Which actually it's not that bad to buy right now, Vicky, because there's less competition. There's less houses to choose from, but I'm seeing seller concessions now. I'm seeing price drops because some of the agents were a bit ambitious. She says a little, but I can't find anything. I'm curious what your budget is. Yeah, what's up? Danny Deal's in here. Yeah, I saw you called me. I'm sorry I can't answer. But if you wanted to, you could hop on and we can chop it up if you want. I don't know. I'm just chilling. I'm going to probably be on here for about an hour, 2 hours. I don't know. And then I'll, if you need help with whatever's going on, I got you. You are actually correct. It's just starting to get better. Yes, it is getting better. Real estate agents are hurting. I'm talking to a lot of peers and colleagues, and everybody is noticing that units are down. So agents get paid when homes sell and less homes are selling. So there's less business for everybody. We here at Artie Real Estate are building, if you guys notice, we've been working hard on our content, trying to brand and build awareness, educate, And when the market changes, which it may or may not, I have no idea. And we're going to kind of do research today about that. And we will see what happens, but we'll be there to help you guys along the way. Vicky, you should reach out if you need help. I don't know. Might be able to find you something. Danny just found a client, a property, and the odds were kind of against it. And let me knock on wood a little bit because it's not a done deal, but put in a lot of work. Very bespoke service from Danny Deals on this particular property with a client with a very low budget, which is usually the thing that makes it hard. He said, offer accepted. Well, see, we're in New Jersey. We got that attorney review and all that nonsense. So let's be careful. I told you before, I think it's my agent, but you don't want to hear that. I would have to know the details because I don't throw agents under the bus because if there's no inventory, there ain't nothing they can do. But why you keep working with them if you not trusted them at this point? You gotta come talk. I don't want to tamper with clients, but Artie Real Estate, we picking up, and you got me. Danny Deals is on here. We got Cassandra as well. We actually have an announcement that's going to be coming out as well, and the real estate mixers might be making a return with Drew Thompson with his mortgage company sponsoring. It'll be inside, so you guys won't freeze. And more information about that will be coming. She said, I'm trying, but I might have to move on. Like, what's going on? What's the agent doing wrong? You say give them a chance. I'm trying, but I might have to move on. Woo, thank you. Yeah, it was cold. It was why Mother Nature try to mess up the mixer by being mad cold that day, and then it was pretty warm on the other days, or at least decent. I have a solution for the backyard to increase the warmth next time, though. So we are going to be doing that. We got 2 people on YouTube. We got 2 on Facebook, and we got somebody on Twitch. So talk to me nice. Don't be ninja watchers. Don't be weird. Y'all just watching me, not talking, but I see you. So let yourself be known. Let yourself be seen. I will have to talk to you more. Yeah, let me know. I am available for sure. And yeah, let's do it. But I don't like to throw agents under the bus on the internet, maybe. Except for certain ones that be doing things they shouldn't do. What should a client do if they aren't happy with their realtor before leaving? Oh man. Well, I think you should have a conversation, a real conversation. Realtors are good at giving you the Jedi mind tricks or the sales speak, and not saying anything by saying something but not saying anything. So that's kind of a problem. Also, you kind of got to understand because I see in some of these Facebook groups, especially a notorious New Jersey one, I see people complain about their agent aggressive enough and all this kind of stuff. Most of the time, I don't know. Like a lot of times when I hear people complain, I'd be like, is it the agent or is it the buyer not understanding certain things? Or, people have unrealistic expectations. And I'm gonna rail on this forever, but New Jersey real estate is extra messy because we have attorney review, and I've seen many deals get pulled from under people, or you think you have an agreement and then an attorney writes something that is completely contradictory to everything that you thought was going to happen and even what was agreed on in the contract. Because in New Jersey with attorney review, a contract's not a contract. No one has to honor anything, and it's trash, and I don't like it. And we'll talk about that more, but I try to have a more national appeal with this and try not to stay New Jersey specific. I want this to be accessible to everybody. And my camera oh no, I pressed the wrong button. Oh no. There we go. Sorry guys, you have to hit record every 30 minutes because of some dumb law in Europe back in the day when they manufactured this camera. It could be a combination of both, but I find myself not being educated by my realtor and having to look things up on my own. Do you feel comfortable asking them questions? I do think that is a mistake that a lot of experts make. This happens more in mortgages where they overtalk clients and don't explain things or use language that is hard to understand. When I'm at closings, I always try to explain what's happening because there are agents that just sit there and have their laptop in front of them and just make jokes. I don't like to do that at closing. I like to explain everything and not just explain everything that you're signing, but explain it in a relatable way. I like to tell stories. I like to explain like the reasoning why this is important so that you can really get a good idea because real estate is not common sense. And so, you know, I've seen this happen where people just nod their head and sign because they're happy to buy the house. I like your closing experience to be an educational one. I know I'm a bummer. I want to teach people stuff and I don't want to just sit there and eat cookies and be cute and all that kind of stuff. But I do want to educate people so they know what is going on, what they're signing, just so, you know, you'll really remember your closing and you'll remember like the feeling, you'll remember some of the things that you learn. And so when you buy that second house, you'll be a little bit more prepared. And I think that's really important. So people don't really professionals have a hard time translating the language into a way that a client can understand. Yes, I ask questions, however, I don't answer directly. That has to do with training, and a lot of stuff in real estate is about compliance and not getting sued and that kind of stuff. I remember being trained to never be the source of the information so that it could never come back to you that you advised them to do something that ended up not working well. I understand the point of view of that, but I do think we need to take ownership of the information we're giving, of our referrals, of our advice. I'm not saying you should get sued if you give advice and it doesn't work out for the person, but um, agents are trained, many agents, and this isn't everyone. So I can't even blame them totally, but they are kind of trained to do that realtor speak, like giving you maybe it's this, but maybe it's that, but maybe it's this, and then, like that kind of talk. So I do find that that's been kind of an issue. How long have you been looking? Danny says. Victoria says over a year. See, that's too long, especially now in this market is really a good time to strike. In my opinion, the rates have crept down slightly, but it does make a bit of a difference. And the sellers, again, we're seeing price drops, and I'm seeing seller concessions a lot. So right now is a really good time to buy. Because you probably when you get a seller concession, you don't need to have as big a down payment. And that makes I love keeping cash in my pocket. I love real estate investing because you can borrow so much money. I was trying to explain at Thanksgiving to some family members. I was like, I got over $1 million in debt. I'm not worried about it. And they're like, isn't debt bad? And I'm like, oh man, financial education is just really missing because it depends what the debt is too, so there's bad debt and there's good debt, and it depends on the asset and it depends on the value of the thing that you're borrowing against, et cetera, the future value of it, time value of money, all that kind of stuff. So definitely, you know not a bad time because you can get the seller to pay some of your closing costs. Because if you guys didn't know, even if you're on FHA, it's 3.5% down, but the closing costs could be $7,000 to $10,000 on, two, three, maybe $350,000 house. They probably creeping up to 10. Here in New Jersey, a big chunk of that has to do with the expense of taxes that you have to pay in escrow. I'm going to give him a couple more months than a months. Why are you gonna give him a couple more months though? Like, what's going on? What is he not showing you the house? Like, he's not. What do you mean not explaining? Like, what did they not explain, or what's a question that you had that you felt was unsatisfactory to you? I'm really curious now. After the holidays. Yeah, but see, if you wait till after the holidays and then the interest rates keep dropping down, you might miss a better opportunity to buy with less competition. Time is super important. Let me know when you're ready to buy, and I know Frank Sims. Oh, you guys know each other? What? Danny know everybody. That's crazy. Is there a relation there? I don't know. Oh, whoa. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna start this video, and we can keep talking. I'm gonna interject and all that kind of stuff. Oh, my face is bright. All right. Let's do it. How do I play? Oh no, is it an ad?
My name is Tim Grover.
Oh,
I'm a
my
performance
goodness.
coach.
Guys, I'm broken, Dusty. I don't have.
The next part
Okay,
here,
here we
topic
go.
I know so many of you are so interested in. Let's put this please up there on the screen.
So this is Breaking Points, which I highly recommend for news today. They're my favorite. Obviously, you should get news from a multitude of different sources. They're not real estate experts. They do all kinds of news, but I do like them.
An indication at the very basic level, and a lot of what we'll actually talk about today about economic feeling and others, is housing. And the housing market right now is just the worst of all worlds. You have high prices and high interest rates. You have also a feeling for a lot of people of being trapped because home sales have now fallen to a 13-year low in October, the lowest.
So prices are still high, which is crazy. Interest rates are high. That's why we were talking about home affordability, because it's costing more to buy the house, and the loan that you're getting costs more, which means more plus more is extra more. And so it costs a lot more. Oh man, I keep saying more. Sorry. Yeah, a little dusty, got to pay for my trips, but you're paying more. And you're getting the same or less. The other problem is people who own their house are still at a low interest rate, and they bought their house at a lower price. So if they decide to sell their house and buy a new one, which is what most people do when they want to buy a new house, is sell theirs and buy a new one and use the money for the down payment and help them to springboard into the other one. That's why it's important to own real estate, because being able to sell your property into the next property and upgrade or borrow against it, et cetera, as an owner is a big benefit. But right now, for a lot of people, it doesn't make sense to sell your house, because you're going to pay more plus more and so even if you downsized your house right now, you could be paying more money for less square footage in a less updated house if you sold your house and bought a new one, which doesn't make any sense. That's why no one's selling their house right now. And not no one, because where agents are still making money in there's transactions: divorce, death in the family, basically all the worst things that happen to people are, distress, all kinds of stuff like that is the reason why people are selling their houses today.
Since 2011. And from these economic forecasts, what you're seeing is that while there has been a slight dip in price, high rates have predominantly had the effect not of pushing down prices, but instead of locking homeowners in to where they currently are and refusing to move. Yep. This has a lot of issues. One, if you are in the entry of the housing market, there's probably never been a worse time to try and buy a house with a high interest rate and with a high price. Two, all
right. So I agree on the timing, but the problem is it could get worse. And if it gets better, if rates go down, you can refinance and do things. Now, if prices go down, there's really not a lot that you can do because then you could be underwater in your property. I don't see the demand dropping, especially if rates go down, the value of your house is going to go up. So, on affordability right now, if you look at it on paper, it is pretty bad for buyers. But if you look into the future, if you bought today and say rates went down, you do need to be seasoned in the loan, probably 6 months and stuff like that. There are mortgage companies offering a free refi if rates go down. You could even look at an adjustable rate, but I don't know if I'd recommend that because we don't know what's going to happen with the rates in the future. But if you look at buying now and into the future, you probably aren't in the worst situation because, again, if rates go down, your home value goes up. Maybe you can refinance and even get your, if you have PMI or mortgage insurance or something like that, you can get that done out of there based off of the equity. And in the lease, you can refinance into a lower rate. And again, if rates go down, that means the value of your house is probably going up. So yes, it's a bad time, but not buying when you can, under certain circumstances, depends on your life goals. This is why you need to consult with agents and loan officers and, really look at your finances and what your goals are. It probably still makes sense to buy. So let's continue.
Decide to rent a couple more years than you would have in the past when you had
The rent's
if you had the
expensive,
down
though.
payment and the ability to buy. Well, what does that do? That causes rent inflation to
Right.
continue to go up. And lo and behold, every single time you look at the CPI, rent and housing inflation remains one of the top drivers of the overall consumer price index. So the housing, crunch, both at a price level in terms of the inability to sell, and then the massive pressure on the rental market, combined with, if you're a developer right now, why are we building a house exactly if I can't sell it? And if I, have to pay 8% interest on my construction loan? So you have a supply crunch, a rent crunch,
and he's talking about like the corporate, like big home builders and stuff like that, right? Because and this is why I haven't flipped a house in a while, and we do have our project that's stalled out due to permits and waiting on engineers and architects and stuff like that. But it's pretty scary because it takes a while to build a house, and you could get into a market in which you can't sell it, or it's harder to sell, or it won't sell for what you projected to sell it for. Obviously, if you can't sell it, you got to drop the price until you're able to sell it, which could be painful, and you could lose money because the cost of everything costs more. All the wood and all that stuff is inflated in price too. So home builders are like, well, let's slow down building houses, which makes the problem even worse because we're not getting new houses built. People are having babies, so the populations are growing, and houses aren't growing. We're not getting more housing, so it's spooky. It really is.
Housing crunch all wrapped in to the same time. I honestly think this is like on par with this 1970s, level stagflation, where at that point it was unemployment that was getting all the attention. But here, housing just floats under the rug. People just don't talk about it as much. And yet we have seen a tremendous amount of audience interest.
Do you guys think that no one talks about it? And that, so it's funny. I think in national news, maybe no one talks about it. That's all we talk about is real estate and the market and how crazy it is. But then what is there to say, functionally? Because you just can't. The home affordability is bad. How many times am I going to say it? I've talked about all the kind of issues and problems that this lack of affordability is having. But at the end of the day, all we can do is what we can do with it.
Because I think this is probably at the top of so many of your heads, especially if you're younger. For a lot of the boomers, they've got what they need. But, and I guess that's why cable news and others would ignore it. And if you're rich, none of this really applies to you. But if you are even richer, upper middle class or lower, you're having a tough time out there right now trying to buy a house, especially with average home price in a major metro area has crossed $500,000.
I'll never forget that poll that we looked at that was like people were praying for a housing crash because they were like, how else am I ever going to afford a house? And instead, you've had the worst of all worlds. mortgage rates have gone way up and housing prices have still gone up.
Yeah, if you're like 21, I think you're screwed, because by the time you're not getting paid enough to qualify by yourself, if you're not getting help from your parents, or you're not really exceptional and they're making a whole bunch of money, home affordability is out of there. Now, my solution is buy with other people, get together, find like-minded people, network, all that kind of stuff. But that's not the American dream. The American dream is to have your own house, have your own space, and go from there. And obviously, there's so many benefits in wealth, and wealth generation through real estate. So sad.
And so, yeah, the market is just completely frozen. Rents are still wildly expensive, and people just feel like
That's the other thing, right? So, okay, you're not going to buy, but if you're renting, you're paying a premium anyway. So the benefits of owning makes sense. Now, if you're living at home and you don't have a housing expense, that's a different conversation.
will never be able to make it. This will never be sustainable. I will never be able to be in like a stable position as a homeowner building something. And that's why I put this next piece up on the screen. You have so many people saying in a new Wall Street Journal poll that the American dream is dead. It's slipping out of reach. Fewer people believe that anyone who works hard can get ahead. Only 30.
I had a reel on I posted a reel about that, where I feel like Gen Z has given up on working hard, because how the heck are they going to get ahead? If unless, you're an engineer or a lawyer or something like that. And even then, I mean, they're having trouble paying their student loan debt. It's taken them until their 30s and 40s to even pay off their student loan so that they can start living their financial lives. Let alone people aren't, cohabitating and dating and getting together and working together in that way. Everyone's more alone. And the way the economy is, why the heck are you going to work really hard to get promoted at your job if you still can't own a house? You still can't really do what you want to do. You still are struggling. You're still paycheck to paycheck. You might as well just be broke and just try to enjoy life, at the cheapest level possible. Worry about your interpersonal relationships. I mean, some people like hobbies or gaming or whatever the heck they're doing. But a lot of people, it makes sense why they're giving up. Now, I don't think that's the answer, but I do understand it. I definitely do.
6% of voters in this poll say that the American dream still holds true. That is way fewer than the 53% holds true. That is way fewer than the voters in this poll say that the American dream still holds true. That is way fewer than the 53% majority who said that just back in 2012 and the 48% who said it back in 2016 in similar surveys asked by a different pollster. There was also a Wall Street Journal poll last year that asked whether people who work hard were likely to get ahead, and some 68% actually said yes, nearly twice the share as in this American Dream poll. Now, those are slightly different questions, but it shows you still there has been a deterioration even in the past year. The American Dream, they say, seemed most remote to young adults and women. Some 46% of men were actually like, okay, yeah, American Dream's still real. Only 28% of women said the ideal of advancement for hard work still holds true, as did 48% of voters age 65 or older, but only 28% of those under age 50. And I would be curious to see, under age 30, what are those numbers? I bet it's even lower than 28% who feel like the American Dream is still even a possibility.
Yeah. So to have it just flip completely in the span of not even a single generation, but really in a decade is one of the more profound economic stories of all American history. There have been very few as transformative times as we're in right now. This is on par.
Basically the idea of home ownership, and if you can succeed by working hard and all that stuff, is being affected by the economy dramatically, where different generations have a vastly different view about it. And I can't blame the younger generation. They call them lazy, and they would say that about millennials and all that kind of stuff. But first of all, millennials, you know, which I'm 35, and why didn't I know that? So I'm 35, and high school graduation, Iraq war, war on terror, everything's scary out there. You go to college. When you graduate college, it's 07, 08. No jobs, nothing. The prices of stuff was increasing at that point, but the financial crash was horrible. You couldn't get a loan. Then, the rise of student loan debt crushed millennials, and then they couldn't find good jobs, even though they had degrees. Now they're probably not the right degrees. So all these psychology majors, sorry, I don't know, communications, I don't know what y'all was thinking. Y'all were misinformed, but that was an issue. Then, and this affects Gen Z, is COVID. And COVID put everyone inside. And it's funny because millennials were just getting on their feet. They were just starting to be able to buy houses. They were starting to live their lives, starting to get married, starting to make close to $100,000 a year. And, they're in their mid or higher end on their income that they're going to make in their lifetime. And then COVID strikes, housing prices go crazy. Obviously 2020 and 2021, terrible years, couldn't do anything, couldn't go outside unless you lived in certain states, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of crises that people had to deal with. So I get it where people are kind of exhausted, they're defeated, and I don't think it's good. Because I don't think this stuff is good for society, because if you have people, and I feel it, everyone's walking around angry and disgruntled about their lives, like in a real way. That's how you get more road rage incidents, all kinds of crime and shootings over nothing in certain areas, because people are wound up real tight. And even if you're doing well, if you bump into one of these people, they're going to crash into you. So as a community, as a collective, when a large amount of people who have at least tried to do reasonable things to improve their lives give up, and they're frustrated and they're angry, it affects all of us. And so I think that we should pay attention to it, and we should care about it in the least.
With the great, and really, I think, extension of the Great Recession and the attendant social fallout, we had the Great Depression, which is really the only other previous time in modern industrial society that we've seen anything like this. And we instead we try to pretend, and we live with the day to day. And of course, we're talking about Israel and OpenAI and Ireland and all this other stuff. But this is by and large the single biggest determinant of how you're going to live your life, how you're going to get a job, whether you're able to get married, what it actually looks like, what your prospects are to the future, if you have and want to even work to anything in the future, or why you would even choose to go into debt to get some schooling. You only do that if you think that you're going to come out better on the other side. And the same holds true for really any investment that you're going to make. So nihilism has a really downstream, terrible impact economically. And then, of course,
nihilism is a philosophical idea where there's no point to anything. Why even try, basically?
Of course, on a personal and life level,
just give up.
It's an awful way to live. And the way that comes out in politics is the primal screams. You have Trump, you have Bernie, you have all these a flash in the pan moments. The establishment panics, it tries to co-opt and all of that. But I think at this point, they have failed so dramatically to grapple all the way from 2001 onward that they don't deserve a single ounce of trust anymore. And it's really a generational gap between people who are our age, Crystal, and the people who are 25, 30 years older, who can remember the 1990s, who were adults.
Yo, man, my mom was making $200,000 and didn't think that was a lot of money. And I'm trying to tell her, the average income is $50,000 a year. How people live on it is really hard. The rent where we're at for a decent place is going to be $2,000 plus a lot of times. That's most of your disposable income by itself. And so there is a giant generational divide. And as I always say, the older people who own stuff are benefiting from the increase in prices because if they own real estate or they have businesses or whatever, they are gaining more money and net worth and wealth through their asset appreciation, or at least they're being protected from inflation based off of that. Now, if you don't own anything, things just cost more, and you're making the same amount, which essentially you're making less because everything costs more. So more of your money is going to housing, the whole egg crisis, gas, all the stuff. It's nasty. It's nasty out here. And don't forget, this is an interactive show. Ask your questions. We could talk about anything. We're here chilling, having a nice vibe, hanging out, just talking about the market. I do have some thoughts and solutions that we're going to talk about a little bit after the video. This, again, is Breaking Points, and they're talking about home sales are at an 11-year low. I've seen a 13-year low on some other platforms, but basically no homes are selling because the rates and home affordability, and there's no reason to sell your house into a higher price and a higher interest rate
that time, and
a lot of these real estate agents are going to go out of business,
who were living large. Whereas for the rest of us, that's a distant memory. It's like something that existed in the past. I've been rewatching Friends recently. It is an amazing, it's like a time capsule. And I think one of the reasons why people love the show so much is, man, what an awesome time. 1998, they had cell phones. The stock market was going like 20, 9/11, and just like the carefree like nature in which you could just watch 6 people screw off at a coffee shop. It really does show you what America was like at that time, as opposed to what's popular now for most people.
I mean, it wasn't exactly an accurate depiction.
Why did it hit? Why did it hit to the core?
Well, and not only did
of the
it
zeitgeist
then, but it still
the nostalgia now. Yeah,
my 15-year-old rewatched the whole thing and was obsessed with it and whatever. Right. On the American Dream piece, there's a great book that I've mentioned on the show before, and we've actually had the author Justin Guest on the show as well, called The New Minority. And it's a look at the white working class, and part of one of the sections, it's actually a comparison of the white working class in the US, in Youngstown, Ohio, and the white working class in a like working class suburb of London. And they actually found that in some ways the belief in the American dream was kind of insidious. And the reason why is because if you have this pervading mythology of like, if you work hard, you can make it, and it's all about you, right? Your individual work ethic and agency and all of that, then it leads people to blame themselves when, like that nurse that we played earlier, when they're going through it and they're struggling. And I mean, she says something, she's like, I did everything right. Like I did everything right. And there's all this shame wrapped up in it. And what he found through, like statistical analysis, is that belief, that persistent belief in the American dream, actually undercut activism because it led people more to look inward and be like, I must be doing something wrong. I must be a failure. And anyone can look at their life and find like, oh, I shouldn't have bought that, or I shouldn't have made that decision.
All right, I'm triggered. I think this is an interesting philosophical thing to talk about, right? Because what else are you going to do? Okay, so the circumstances are the circumstances. And if you alleviate yourself of the ultimate responsibility for how your life turns out, how is that going to help you do better or improve? Because if you just say, well, these circumstances are happening to me, and that's why everything is the way that it is, and it's not my fault, you're going to stay there. The truth of it actually doesn't matter, because I totally understand all the macro factors that are making things difficult for you in your life and economically. I do understand that, okay? But what are you going to do about it? It reminds me of the movie Higher Learning, where Mekhi Phifer, who ran track, is complaining to his professor about, because he's a, I think disadvantaged black guy at track on scholarship, and he, he's complaining. They have all the advantages, all that kind of stuff. And not to make it about race, because but I do think it's just a philosophy that works for anybody. Is, so he's complaining, and the professor's like, which is Lawrence Fishburne. He says, "Well, what would you do at track if you go to a track meet and there's a taller, faster, stronger, better opponent? What are you thinking? What are you going to do?" And Mekhi Phifer says, "Run faster." And while that, I guess, is unsatisfactory answer to people, and I do think we've spent time going over what the factors are that are making things difficult for people, as an individual person, as me, all I can do is think about things that I can do. Because what is the benefit of me? It's okay if I know the factors that are affecting me and making things difficult. I think that's okay. But I have to believe that I can do something or change something or win to be able to try to accomplish anything. And so I think it's a dangerous way of thinking to say that my circumstances are the cause of my condition. That may be true. That may be true. But it doesn't help you to believe that. It might help you to be delusional. I think that's an interesting thing, and I think it's simple, but it's actually complicated, because a untruth can help you improve your life. So even if it's most people would say it's not your fault for your condition, taking responsibility for your condition is the way to have a chance out of it. You won't have a chance if you don't take the power back and believe that you can put yourself in a different position. So that's my thoughts on that personal responsibility argument.
Or maybe I'm doing this wrong, or maybe I'm doing that wrong. Everybody can do that, right? But it led them to focus inward rather than engaging in collective action to actually change government policy, which I thought was a...
Come on now. So you see, I guess that's the other solution as well. We're going to go protest and change stuff. To some degree, you should be actively involved, but good luck with that.
Really, a really interesting insight. So with regards to American Dream, something I've been thinking about, we've actually had the author of this book, The New Minority, on this show, which looks at the white working class. And he did an analysis comparing the white working class in Youngstown and the white working class in a suburb of London. And one thing that he found is that the idea of the American Dream is actually, in a sense, kind of insidious. Make it, then if you don't make it, on the one hand, while of course it's bad that people feel like they can't make it and the American Dream is dead, I'm actually for establishing some new mythology that's not all about, like, if you don't make it, it's your fault. You should feel shame. You should feel horrible. You should examine everywhere that you went wrong in your life.
What should you
and
do?
Instead looks at not only personal agency, we can keep still, hold open some piece of personal agency, but also looks at the manifest ways that elites and our government have completely failed the American people over decades.
Yeah, I think the story of the U.S., just to tie a bow on it, is a battle between rugged individualism and then labor capitalism. And so the transition of the expansion west, and it's like the California gold rush. You can go out there, you can make it on your own. Oops, a bunch of people go bust, and then we have like financialization, and we have mass industrialization, and you have, if anybody ever watched the TV show, one of my favorite shows, The Gilded Age, the current season is actually really working through some some of this, where you have these titans of like robber baron type capitalism, but you also have union officials that are emerging in a movement at the same time. And there's a scene where one of the guys tries to buy one of the union leaders off, and he's like, "You don't really get what's going on here, do you?" And whenever he goes back, and then that struggle is really the story of the modern industrial economy. It played out here, it played out all across Europe, and the way that US and Britain really separated themselves from Germany and from Russia and others that went in a much more communist direction is that their elites recognized that you have to treat and pay people better and enshrine their rights into law. And they basically acquiesced, whereas the Russian and the German monarchies were like, yeah, we're not doing basically any of that. And what happened to their societies collapsed, broke down, and they had massive revolutions. So,
well, that's actually a good point, is that, back to my point, if you got people walking around miserable all day, you're going to have more crime, you're going to have more bad things happen. And when people give up, it's going to be a problem. So I get, hopefully you guys get my point. I'm not just saying, oh, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and shut up. But as a personal philosophy, that's probably the way that you should think. At the same time, a person in my position can see how the game is way worse than when I started. Although there's plenty of people that are way worse off than me that had more opportunity and didn't invest. They spent money. They was cool. They bought Gucci belts, and I have no sympathy for them. So
if we don't want to repeat the mistakes that they made, we have to do what really, I think, saved capitalism in a lot of ways, which is what FDR and his predecessors did, is recognize those rights and incorporate it both into the rugged American story, as well as recognizing that structural factors are, of course, going to impact, everyday people's lives. And so, anyway, I think the reason that we are currently in the scenario that we are is that we've swung much more back in that direction and have really forgotten, I think, a cherished part of our history, which has been missing now for a long time.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium.
Shout out to Breaking Points. Favorite news. Pretty balanced. Pretty interesting. They cover stuff that no one else covers. I like it. Here's what I think is going to happen with the real estate market. And I've been wrong in every prediction, so please don't make life decisions based off of what I'm about to say. Talk to people. Just take whatever thoughts you have. Get a wide range and decide for yourself. But what it's looking like now is, I do think rates are going to continue to creep down, because the reason why they increased the interest rates was to stop inflation. Now inflation is slowing down, which is good. It's controversial whether that was the right way to stop inflation, but whatever. As rates go down, the market's going to pick up, because there's so many people that still want to buy a house. Meaning that if rates come down, prices are going to go up. So you're going to probably pay more anyway. I do think, because real estate moves slowly, there will be an opportunity at the time in which rates take any significant drop. If you get out there and start putting offers in right away, you will take advantage of sellers and agents who have not kept up with the market and have not adjusted yet and not have raised their prices, and other buyers who were a little bit slower. You could probably get a good deal. That's probably the biggest strategy that I like right now. Again, if rates drop, you need to get out there and put in offers immediately and beat the other buyers and beat the information getting to other people. So as soon as rates get to an acceptable level where it's going to pick up the other buyers, you need to beat them to the market and get that house under contract, because the prices are going to start going up. The competition is going to increase. And then it's going to be late 2020, 2021 all over again, where you can write a blank check and they still don't want to take it because they don't like your financing or your contingencies or whatever your issue is as far as trying to buy the property, and they only want to take a cash deal and no negotiating at all. So that is my perspective on the market. That's what I think you should do on the buy side. If you're thinking about selling, I guess if you want to hold off, you're gambling, because if we don't see, if we just stay at this current level, it's kind of hard to sell your house right now. I mean, it's not that hard, but it could sit for a while. You might have to negotiate, give some concessions, but you have been maintaining your price, so that's not too bad. I don't have a strong advice, I don't think, for sellers right now. So I would say, see, the sellers are the buyers, right? So if you're thinking about selling your house to upgrade, same concept. If the rates come down to an acceptable level where it makes sense for you to upgrade your house, maybe you're having more kids or whatever your case may be, then you probably should just again get out there and get your offers in as fast as possible before the market adjusts. So that's my live for today. Hopefully this information was helpful. Again, this is an interactive show. Ask your questions. Should probably be live most Wednesdays, some Sundays. Obviously, follow my YouTube channel, subscribe, and I'm trying to pick that back up. You can follow me on Instagram if you guys know me on YouTube. That's where I share most of what's going on with me. If you're interested, you can DM me. I am available. I will consult with you and give you my best advice based off of my experience. And what you do with that is up to you. So thanks, guys. See you later.